big, beautiful world we call Earth. My name is Cody, and I am the host of Behind the Premium. I'm pretty excited because today we are talking about mental health, something that is very close to my heart, and I'm excited to jump in. But before we do, I want to thank all of our panelists that have signed up to be with us today to jump into this discussion, as it is a worthy discussion of having. But before we go around and introduce themselves, just a couple of things to kind of set the mood and set the cadence for this. If you haven't already, definitely make sure that you like and subscribe the Behind the Premium channel. We try to bring some of the top discussions. We are trying to lead the discussion in the healthcare space when it comes to pushing the status quo and talking about things that a lot of people don't like to talk about or are afraid to talk about. And the good news is that we are not tied or sponsored by any carrier specific. So I'm not afraid to push the status quo and ask those hard questions, especially to brokers and carriers. So yeah, so if you haven't done that already, definitely give us a like. We appreciate it. So let's kick off with going around the horn here real quick and introducing who we have joining us. If gentlemen, we'll let the ladies go first, if you don't mind. Maria, since you were first to show up, we will have you go first.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cody, for having me today. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Maria Fragas, I've been in the benefit space for over 30 years, both on the employer side, spent about 22 years on the employer side, corporate HR, and on the consulting side. And, the subject of mental health care is one that comes up regardless of what side of the table you're sitting on. And very different views, very different approaches. So, like I said, really excited to be here today.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you as well. We'll jump over to Dana.
Hi there. I'm Dana Byerly. I'm a senior product marketing leader, go to marketing person, and I work at the intersection of health tech, AI, and human well being. I've been in and around the enterprise well being space for about 12 years now. I had the opportunity to lead Meta's first B2B to C enterprise health channel for VR and AI wearable products. And then before that, I was on the global well-being teams at Visa and Bristol Myers Squibb.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, welcome. Rhonda, how are you?
Good. Thanks, Cody. My name's Rhonda. I'm a nurse and founder, Chief Health Innovation Officer of WellTrio. Super passionate about healthcare, and with healthcare comes mental health. I see that as a big problem, and finding the right care for the right problem and getting employees specifically to use that care. So I'm excited about this discussion.
Perfect. Well, thanks for showing up. We appreciate it. And well, Trio is the sponsor of today's episode as well. So, with that being said, let's jump over to the gentleman. Bennett, go for it, my friend.
Great. Thanks, Cody. My name is Bennett Heems. I'm an employee benefit broker down in Southern California. I have about 20 years of experience with middle market companies, ranging options from HMOs, PPOs, trying to drive companies into more level funding, self-funding, captives as a solution. I pride myself in being able to help make deductibles disappear and copays go away. And I do that through educating teams on centers of excellence and ways to drive better healthcare outcomes.
Love that. Who doesn't want a copay, right? I know I don't.
Get away. Copays go
Yeah,
away.
exactly. Shoo, shoo. That's awesome. All right. And then we'll jump over to Paul.
Cody, first and foremost, thanks so much for having me. My name is Paul H. Flowers Jr., founder of Superior Insurance Advisors. I've been in the insurance space for going on 2 decades now, with experience both on the individual and on the group side. I realized a few things working for corporate, big box brokers, and the carriers alike is that legal, moral, and ethical are not always there in tandem. That being the case, decided to take it, as they say, hang your own flag. Hung my own flag, partnered with Next Gen Mastermind, and haven't looked back. We've currently helped to save well over $10 billion in company plans, but more importantly, increase the quality of healthcare and actually provide health care, not just a plan that people are shelling out premium for over the year after year, month after month. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
I love it. Love it. Love brokers who are innovators in the space and are ready to give the healthcare system the middle finger. That's for sure. So, Derek, over to you, my friend. You
All
got to be
right.
careful what you say around Derek. He's a little bit of an espionage kind of guy. No, I'm just kidding. Go for it.
I used to be. So
Yeah, exactly.
So I former like I retired military, U.S. Army. I was in counterintelligence, and now I've switched over and I work as a human resource business partner. Just taking some of the skill sets with leadership development and like just interaction with top leadership to talk about strategic planning. Those are the kind of the areas where I focus on the most.
Yeah. Derek and I had a great conversation. We did a one-on-one interview the other day to talk about this experience that he's had and bringing it over to the HR. So if you're curious and want to watch a good psychology kind of discussion, I highly recommend you go check that out on our channel as well. It was a lot of fun. So thanks for coming back, Derek. I'm glad we didn't shoo you away as well.
I appreciate you having me.
We'll keep you and not the co-pays. How about that? So
let's do that.
I love it. Love it. Well, to kind of kick things off again today, we are talking about mental health. And, for a lot of companies that are paying for mental health benefits, it gives the employees that nice warm fuzzy. It's a great checkoff item for a lot of companies. But most reality, a lot of it's not working and nobody's telling the employees that. And in fact, there was a recent study that was done in preparation for this. I read a study that stated that in 2025, 34% of employees say that mental health actually hurt their productivity last year. 48% said that they actually left their job because of mental health issues, and 53% didn't even know how to access the mental health portions of their benefits plan that they were already paying for. And so, to kind of set the stage, this is what I want to kind of talk about. And there's a lot of different things angles that we can go with this, from constantly changing your benefits plan, to burnout, to various telehealth loopholes, oversubscribing, wellness apps, things like that. And one of the big things that I think is a thing that a lot of people are kind of avoiding talking about is the ticking time bomb of a drug pipeline that could basically blow up your benefit plans in the next 5 years in terms of costs. So with that being said, my first question that I'm going to throw out there to you is, if employees are spending so much on healthcare, which I think is a great thing that we're finally talking about healthcare. I think COVID was a something good that came out of it is that we're finally openly talking about healthcare and mental health. And one of the things is that if 53% don't know how to access it, where are we falling short on that, and how can we raise that number? So if you want to jump in, feel free to go for it. Love to hear your take on that.
I'll only jump in first is because I was the last person to join. So I figure I'll get this out there really quickly. So again, I'd worked in the carrier space for a bit. And at that time, I actually worked right alongside the brokers and I'm just going to say it very bluntly, the big box brokers. So we're talking about our alphabet folks, right? Our WTWs, the Aons, the USIs, like BMDs, the name it. And we worked in all 50 states. So what I learned and realized is that in all 50 states, you have the same issue, and it is a true lack of education. And I'm going to go so far as to say a true lack of competence in how to educate the consumer, meaning the actual end user, the employee, on how to use the benefits. Now, you got a couple of pieces to that. There's actually the employee, because of course the onus is always on the person that's using the service to go ahead and find out everything they need to and ask the right questions. And it has a huge degree to do with the person that's providing it. And that's twofold. So you've got the employer, which may not allow enough time for the benefit broker to actually do their job. So, I'll save them a little grace before I come and take the knees out. And you have a lot of big box brokers specifically who are happy with their renewal conversations, the old dog and pony show that gets put on. They go in there, they spend their hour, they're literally 45 minutes, no more than an hour and a half. And that's the longest one. And that was a stretch. 45 minutes to an hour and a half to understand where, for a company, your second largest line item is going. And for an employee, one of your largest expenses coming out of your check on a weekly or biweekly basis is growing. We spend more time figuring out what we're going to watch on Netflix and what we're going to do on vacation than we do educating and being educated about something that impacts not just us, but our families and our overall performance and well-being in life. And I think that education should be taken a lot more seriously from all of the players that are involved in that conversation and transaction.
Yeah, Paul, if I can jump in here, I agree with you wholeheartedly on education, right? But I think we've made it too complex and we've not identified what are the barriers to people actually getting care. So I've worked in international benefits the last 4 years. So I've done everything outside of the US. Prior to that, it was domestic only. And what I discovered outside the US, the biggest barrier to people getting care is actually financial, right? In the US, we're really unique because we don't have a national healthcare system, unlike the rest of the world. And we have our private healthcare system, and our mental health benefits are built into that plan design. That's what makes it complex. The reality is, most practitioners don't accept health insurance. Most mental health practitioners, they don't want to be part of a network, right? They don't want to contract with the big providers because the reimbursement that they receive is very low. It's extremely complex, and all the paperwork that they have to file when they want to get reimbursed for a claim. So they go out and they put up their own shingle and they're a private payer. So why can't we look and advise our employer clients to do the same? Take healthcare out of the healthcare system, treat it like an HSA, treat it like in Canada where you get a bucket of money and that bucket of money is purely dedicated for your health, your mental health care.
I love that. One thing that I do, I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I own a marketing agency, and my marketing agency only serves mental health clinics across the country,
Mm.
and it has been such a blessing. So when I say that it's close to my heart, my wife's actually a therapist as well, and so for me, that's my way of giving back is helping these mental health clinics be able to spread the word, get the word out there. But to Maria's point, yeah, like some of these therapists that I work with, they take, I mean, insurance will take up to 90 days to pay them. And how can you keep the doors open when you have to wait that long in order to do it? So yeah, cash pay is a huge deal for them. 100% agree with you on that one. So.
I'm going to jump in here. I agree with Maria and Paul about education. I think you both bring up some really good points. I also think education is important to help the employee understand when they might be having a mental health problem because most don't. There's and EAPs are set up are a racket, I think, but they're set up where you have 5 visits. Well, a real mental health crisis is not going to be addressed in 5 visits. Maybe a death, maybe the rare occasion. But are we educating the employee that when they stop sleeping well, that might be a mental health issue? When they're stress eating or they can't eat, that they might need some mental health care. Start having headaches, chronic pain, stomach issues, like those are all related to healthcare. And I think we wait so long until we're like in the suicidal bucket before we seek out proper mental health care that we are missing a huge opportunity to address some of these problems early.
Rhonda, I think I love that that we're talking about like the self awareness piece, and I think that that is absolutely important, and it's equally important for like just in leadership development, where like the focus is recognizing that in others. So like a person self-aware, recognizing when they're not sleeping well or when they're having certain issues is awesome. But it's also important for other people to notice that there's a change in behavioral patterns. Anytime someone changes their nonverbals from their baseline to something else, then it's an indicator that something is wrong. And when you have things like they move slower, they speak slower or quieter, they their eyes are not moving around as much. then those are indicators that something may be an issue, and and that we may want to bring up. And excellent time for education to be like, we have these programs for you if you do need help.
Definitely.
So
Yeah, I'll
my
jump in here
oh,
as
go for it. Yeah,
sorry.
go for it.
No, just love all these points. And I totally agree. It's, it's education, but also there's a real need, I think, and maybe misunderstanding within companies of how to really educate, market, in a way, drive acquisition. So my background before I came to corporate well-being, I didn't have like a formal HR background. I came from like startup world and tech and user acquisition, right? And that real kind of like grassroots way of like, hey, launch is just the first step. How do we really, get people to use things, change their lives, etc. I think a lot of companies don't have, they say they do, but they really don't have a well-being program, meaning they have like a benefits portfolio with no brand, no real rallying call. It's like a bunch of things, and none of them really reinforce each other. And so the structural adoption stalls because there's no big tent underneath this, like why this matters. As you were saying, a caregiver isn't just dealing with mental health. They might be dealing with 3 hours of sleep, holding it together for kids, back problems from lifting up an aging parent, right? All these things work together. And if you can talk to it in a holistic way and really have that strategy with, programming, comms, marketing, and community building, which I'm happy to speak more about, I think that's where we're seeing, real personalization and customization of talking to folks of what matters to them can help collapse a portfolio into a really coherent story for people.
Yeah, I love the angle that you guys are going down. One thing that I kind of want to throw out for my brokers that are on this panel is how, think about your client base that you currently have. How many or what percentage would you say are actually putting a lot of focus on mental health? Because it is a crisis that is growing. And if you think about it, burnout is a number one thing that I'm hearing more and more and more about. Over the last couple of years that seems to be a rising pandemic happening. So I'm curious as for the brokers out there and HR guys, feel free to jump in as well. But I just kind of want to see what kind of percentage of companies are actually putting and investing time and effort into this.
Yeah, Cody,
Well,
I'd love to take that one from a broker side and the employer side. So from the broker side, I would say 100% of our clients are saying, I have an issue with mental health, right? That's the number one: stress, mental health, I have an issue. I would say maybe 50%, if that high, are actually taking any action. And the reason being, once we actually start talking about it and the cost impact to implement a true mental health support program, right? They're afraid of the cost that it's going to drive to their plan. So there is a huge misconnection or a disconnect between what they're telling us and recognizing that it is one of the top issues and actually taking action.
I would agree with that, Maria. It is one of the leading conversation items. And then what we're doing is having to uncover what avenues do they already have, like the EAP? How do we re-educate the EAP? What is the process for going through and getting and seeking out help, helping people understand and have some self-awareness about it? Now, probably a counterpoint to this is I think we might be doing too well or too good of a job on mental health. The fact that, upwards of 20% of US adults are taking some mental health medication. That number could be higher depending on the survey. I think that the challenge with mental health is it touches so many different areas. If we're specifically talking about burnout, is that a workers' comp issue? Is that an employer issue? Is that something that's going on at the house? And ultimately, what the challenge with mental health, the framework is that this is a symptoms-based program that's reliant upon patient responses in a clinical setting where they're asking questions like, how are you feeling? Are you sleeping at night? What behavior changes have you noticed? And they're relying on the person to answer those questions honestly to see if there has been a long-term, occurrence of this before the frontline treatment in America right now is a prescription. And so mental health is really like, we like to think about this as like coaching and therapy and how we're going to solve problems. But the reality of the system is that it is, okay, you've answered these questions. We're going to give you a medication, an SSRI. And to me, that is not the solution. I think we're overprescribed. We are underinvested in the actual tangible programs that do provide value, like on-site coaching or like clinical models, or even, I like dare to say, but inpatient psychiatric care, which is historically how we deal with really traumatic situations. So I think in some regards, the system has worked exactly how it was designed to treat with medication up front, and that became the low cost solution. But as we're seeing now, that is with a pipeline of like 75 drugs coming down, going to be hitting the insurance plan here in what, a year or two. I don't think we're tackling the problem correctly.
We're definitely not hitting the root cause of whatever it is. Like if there's the mental illness, then it's usually coupled with substance abuse and like family issues or like other personal things. It's not just the mental illness, or it's not just the depression. It's like there's a lot of things, and they're being caused by uh, something. I think, and to your point, the medication just covers the symptom of it, and where I think it is kind of crucial for us to understand that when we apply our business practices, like being lean and getting the 5 whys, and like those are things that we work on with our people as well, not just our process.
Yeah. I think it's a cultural issue, to be honest.
Mhm.
When I look at the US versus the rest of the world, you can absolutely see it. US tends to be give me a pill, make me feel better now. I want something now, versus actually putting in the work to address what are the underlying causes of why you're not sleeping well, or really discovering what's at the root of it. What I really worry about is I see some of this spilling into the rest of the globe now, right? So I think medication absolutely has a place, but I think until culture shifts, the same way that we've been able to really start to shift the taboo around even just talking about mental health, right? If you think back, not that long ago, it was taboo to talk about this subject,
Yep.
right? Now everybody's
Yeah.
talking about it, but nobody's really
Yeah.
doing anything to help at the core. It's give me
Here-
that pill, make me feel
Yep.
better.
Here's your lollipop, and here's your
Yeah.
tap on the head, and we'll see you next week, type of thing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I agree with you guys on the culture thing. I find it very interesting, and Maria, you could probably confirm this with me, but the U.S. and one other country in the world are the only two countries that are allowed to advertise medication.
Yeah. They
New
were both in
Zealand.
North America.
What was that?
Oh,
Both North America. So US and Canada are the predominant
And
countries with
so to
New Zealand.
me, yeah, to me that is like you're definitely cognitively developing a certain type of behavior around it, where they're seeing like, oh, I've got all these symptoms, I've got this, I've got that, and I want to go in for this vanity drug. And then it's like, my kids and I always we always like waiting till the end where it starts talking about the side effects. And we're like, okay, how many side effects is this pill going to have? And we were like throwing out 5, 10, 15 different side effects. And then you start thinking about, okay, well then I got to take this pill to offset these things, and so on and so forth. So yeah, you're exacerbating the whole kind of prescription time bomb that we were talking about earlier, right? So yeah, that's interesting. Does anybody else have
And
anything they want to add?
yeah, I was going to mention while we're on the topic of culture, right? Regional and culture at large is a factor, as well as, of course, the internal culture of an organization. When you talk about burnout, we can't talk about the ways of working, the cultural climate right now inside one's daily life at some of these places. And there are, I think there's a real difference of, we all know, when you work with someone who is really ready to create a culture of well-being, a way of being with each other and work that's very different than just, implementing or offering benefits. And to me, those are most dedicated and who understand to create that culture. It really is kind of, grassroots. It's community. It's not even so much like regular comms. It's really community building to shift that culture. So, for example, I had the opportunity to launch and grow some global mental health ally programs, well-being champion networks at some of these larger companies. And it is amazing, like when you have that TLC, when you can get different demographics, regions, even levels of an organization involved. The sites and regions where we launched those mental health ally programs, within 6 months, we were seeing like 2 to 3 X increase in resource awareness, utilization, reduction in stigma, and willingness to talk about mental health at work. And that was just in the course of 6 months, 200, 300%, post survey results. So it can be done. I've seen it. And of course, though, it's all about sustaining it and showing leadership that investment, because we talk about ROI. And to me, these things are showing up on a P&L on the bottom line. They're just not audited and tracked that way.
Makes sense. Rhonda, I'm going to throw something over to you since you work with a lot of, your company works a lot with employees up front, one-on-one. What are you kind of seeing from that front? We've been talking about from this side. Let's talk about the other side. Let's go from the employees up.
So we at Welltrio, we make sure that every single employee has a dedicated coach. Bennett, you talked about the benefits of a coach. I think putting that coach with the employee on a quarterly basis where they're having a meeting, checking in, and they're able to watch for those signs that you talked about, Derek, educated on what they're looking for, and then educating the employee on what they're seeing and kind of steering them in the right direction. A lot of employees don't even know the difference between a psychiatrist or crisis line, therapist, all of the different kinds of care that even primary care, they just don't quite know where to go. So if they go down the wrong avenue, then they're just confused, discouraged. So having a coach who's right there, going to answer their questions, I find is a huge benefit to the employee. It helps with the education part, utilization part, and directing. And then I also really like the idea of these no copay, no deductible plans, kind of a cash centric, where the employee can go to anybody that takes cash. If they take cash, they can use the providers, so that we kind of overcome the access to providers that you talked about, Maria. So a lot of these tools that we put in place, and then the one-on-one with each employee so that they have access to those resources and somebody interacting with them on a regular basis and can see those changes in countenance, changes in tone of voice and speech cadence that we kind of want to look for when we're looking about mental health crisis.
Perfect.
Chime in for just a sec.
Go
You
for
used
it,
a
Paul.
keyword, which was access. And what I noticed with clients that are self-funded versus those that are fully insured is that the access differs greatly. It differs greatly per region, where you're at in the Midwest versus the East Coast, et cetera. And a shameless plug, I don't get any cookies or kudos for it, but I met a gentleman through my mastermind, John Troutman, and he has been a saving grace. He works with Mind Club America, and the types of networks that he's been able to put together for myself and my partners has been, to me, second to none. And around where they are, that are able to see a person in 1 to 2 days. It's not like the emergency right now stuff, as opposed to 1 to 2 weeks or 1 to 2 months.
Mhm.
So the access has been one of the biggest things that, again, I'm just so thankful for my partners that I've been able to help more people with through my affiliation with John Troutman and Mind Club America. Again, I don't get any refrigerators, no cookies. He's just going to say, hey, thanks for bringing us business. But when I see something that works and makes sense, I just have to share it.
Hey, I'll give you a gold star, my friend. We like hearing about people that are pushing the status quo. I mean, that's why we have this podcast, so that we can talk about the things that a lot of people aren't really talking about, right? It seems like a lot of the podcasts in the healthcare space are just shameless plugs for services or products that are being out there. Like, great, but what's the long tail effect of those? And those are the things that I want to talk about. And so, with that being said, I kind of want to piggyback off of what you two have just said and shift it over to Dana. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit since you're a tech person in AI. A lot of companies are starting to move towards AI, a lot more apps, and using technology to replace a lot of human touch. And there there are a lot of people that are stating, as I mentioned before, that what was the quote? Let's see here. Sorry, bear with me here for 1 second. I can't seem to find my quote, but anyways, there was a high percentage of employees that were basically stating that they couldn't access I think it was 53% stating that they couldn't access their mental health portion of their benefits. We talked about education. Paul just mentioned access. Rhonda talked about, being able to watch for those signs of mental health issues. What are you feeling is really moving the needle? Because I feel like in a lot of my research, take telehealth for an example. I feel like telehealth is being seriously exploited in a lot of ways, where people are able to get controlled substances, stimulants, a lot of the things without an in-person exam. And so, the convenience of telehealth has kind of made it easier to get that kind of stuff, but hasn't made it too easy. Whereas, you got some of these like walking step apps, kind of wellness apps that a lot of these companies are using, which are a total disconnect with their employees. And I've got a great story I can share with that if we get to it. But I'm kind of curious your take, since this is your world on it. Where do you feel like AI is going, especially where it can't replace human empathy? As like with what Rhonda was talking about with having that human touch.
Yeah, lots of parts there. One on kind of what we're seeing and what would be more maybe like consumer app space or access points. I think there is a lot of that going on of like, hey, I want this or that or this prescription or even to try something wacky out of the box. I do think almost like the traditional benefits or, the benefits you might check or the normal lines of like help for yourself you might pursue are shifting. And so many people, it's insane, are like getting their information from TikTok and Instagram and wellness influencers and all these things that are very good at sounding very authoritative and quoting lots of research that actually, if you looked into it, may not sense. There's a huge, as we all know, health and medical literacy problem going on that I think culturally, like just in the world, AI and the AI slop content is not helping. I will say though, I see opportunities for maybe if you're not participating in that, but like within like the system of, let's say, more like knowledge and access. So like myself, I was always like running these portals. Like we'd have, like kind of the benefits landing page or the well-being landing page, and it was static. And if something updated, it's like, oh my gosh. And then it would really just link you to like maybe where you could sign in or sign up, but like you couldn't ask it. And no one, to me, employees don't think of like, I need a CBT person for mental health, blah blah. No, they just speak in their own language. Like, I'm so stressed, I'm moving, whatever. And I think with AI, like this is actually as soon as like I really saw it was happening, I was like, finally, we can actually have within our enterprise like a way to help people understand what can help them, how it can, and actually get like real questions answered. Like, wait, how would I find out how much this costs? Can you find out what's the difference between what I would pay? Like, let AI do that. To me, anything that's more like data based or knowledge giving, that is such a great use for AI. And like, I'm actually really, really excited about that we can now interact with computers in this way, in this natural language, versus having to know like industry jargon or what you're specifically looking for. So plus and minuses on every side, but yeah, I'm super interested and concerned what I think the outer global misinformation of a lot of health information is doing to people's expectations and expectations about what their employer should provide.
I think what I'm excited about from the AI perspective is if we go back and think about our own cultures and where we come from, finding the right match, because I think that's a big challenge. If you don't have a good relationship with your therapist, you're not going to get anything out of it, right? So AI being intelligent enough to understand your likes, your dislikes, you know, what culture you come from, right? So if it knows you're a Native American female, right? Maybe it's not going to say recommend if you're saying, hey, who's a therapist in my area? It may know enough to not recommend a 20-year-old white female, for example, who may not culturally understand where you're coming from. I think there's a lot of value in AI learning about you individually to be able to find good matches in there, right? That also assumes that there's providers that are like you out there, and that's a challenge.
That I was going to chime in on that one, just from a network perspective, and I'll be quick on that one, is that you have the constraints of networks. And like it was mentioned, a lot of employers don't have, I'll call it the handcuffs unchained for their employees. So they haven't made it possible for employees to go anywhere and find a therapist, to say if they're in Illinois or Indiana, that's on the West Coast, that might more resonate with one demographic or cultural person versus another. And it's going to take for, again, employers to realize that they have to do more hands-on when it comes to their plan. They have to have a little bit more of a human touch, a caring touch, and also a financial touch, because it does impact the bottom line when you have things like the usual, when we talk about mental health, employee absenteeism, presenteeism, is that if they're not really hands-on and making sure that that employee can have the right fit for them when they need it, for as long as they need it, not just 2 or 3 quick visits and then it's done, then it's almost pointless for some plans to even offer a mental health benefit.
One thing I've seen as well, just from the internal side, is that like the companies are putting out their company bot that that gives you access to all the policies that and what's available. So uh, sometimes it's hard to navigate the website, and just to go to that bot and say, hey, listen, here's my circumstance, here's my situation, what does the company offer? And that's where I think and then they get they get policies, they get what's available, they get and even in some cases where it doesn't involve HIPAA, maybe pinging their leadership, their manager, to be like, hey, they're researching these types of things. Maybe it's time to have a good conversation.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to push back a little bit because I do come from a tech side. I do come from an AI world. I am a UI UX designer by trade. So
Nice.
for me, I've been building systems for a lot of years. And, for me, Derek, I'm going to ask, when was the last time you had a real issue? You went to a website and you started chatting with a chat bot and you got the answer you were looking for?
I'm old school. I don't. I know, but I know some people do.
Yeah, I mean, some people do, but if you think about it, when it comes to, oh, we're getting a lot of feedback here. Hold on one sec. Oh, okay. I'll unpause you here in just a second, Dana. For me, it goes back to the whole thing of, if you're in a crisis, if you're in a medical emergency, the last thing I want to do is go to a hospital, go to the freaking emergency room, and have to have like a giant iPad that I'm sitting there chatting with a, an AI nurse to route me to the proper station, get me checked in. I can understand the check-in portion of it, but to diagnose me, do all this kind of stuff, it's like, I'm sitting here bleeding all over the floor, my arms dangling by a thread. I need to see a doctor immediately, type of thing. And I think it's the same way. Like I mean, healthcare aside, like I signed up for a service, a software service, and got onto a 14-day free trial. And then all of a sudden they dinged my credit card because I had to put in the credit card before I could get the trial, right? And so they dinged my credit card before the 14 days were up. Like I'm talking minutes of me signing up. And I'm like, what the crap? And I went to the chat and I kept saying human representative, human representative. And I couldn't get anybody on the phone. I couldn't do it. And they just said, hey, let me connect you with the human. And then 2 seconds later, it would just say, oh, we just created a ticket for you. They will be in contact with you in the next 48 to 72 business hours. And I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, this is a huge amount of money that I just put up. I want it back, right? And so I think when it comes to our healthcare, I mean, if I got into a car wreck, my wife's going to be wanting to know answers right away, not like, oh, you're right. You already gave me that information. My bad. I'm sorry. Let's start the conversation over again. What's your name again? And I mean, this is where I feel like a lot of the AI is failing us. But I think to Dana's point that she was saying earlier was like, as long as we use AI as a tool, not a replacement, I think we're I think we're headed in the right direction. Would you agree with me on that one, Dana?
Yeah, that's well said. A tool, something that could provide a personalized tool, customized tool. It's really like, hey, it's like a signpost and it gets me to the right resource. I think like that can be bolstered then, by humans at an organization, like talking about champion and mental health ally programs, like having a workforce that's trained to like recognize, hey, Cody, you're acting kind of different than yesterday, or these are signs of this or that, or being like, hey, I'm someone who you can talk to about that. But then even that ally, they're like, well, I'm not a therapist, but here, let me show you, let me sit down. Like, what thing do you have? Let's ask this. You know what I mean? So it's always about signposting to get people to the right human beings to help them. So yeah, I love what you're saying of like, it's a tool to connect people, but yeah, like we can't get rid of the people and expect good outcomes.
Yeah. Plus, it's only as good as the people who develop it, who code it,
There we go.
and
Okay.
and the amount of data that's off of it, right? So you're agreeing with me on that one, Paul, right?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
the healthcare industry is so siloed when it comes to data. It's like, why can't I just tap my phone to check in? Why do I always have to fill out the same stupid forms, even though I'm going to the same doctor every single time? Why can't I just tap my phone? Why can't this specialist talk to my primary doctor and get my records? Why do I have to literally grab a copy and take it to them? Um, I mean, this is a struggle that I think we're all in, and if we're expecting, to your point, data, with AI being able to uh, recognize that I'm not acting. Do you know how many petabytes of data is required in order to train an AI model on just me alone? It's
Mhm.
astronomical. And where's it going to get that data? Right. And so that's where I feel like we're failing each other quite a bit when it comes to the AI side. So that's my pushback. I'm not against AI by any means. I actually love it. And I'm looking forward to where it goes. I've been using it for years and years and years. So, um, kind of, anybody want to add anything with AI? I kind of want to move the conversation along to a different topic real quick because I got one I want to jump in with what Bennett and I were talking about earlier this week. So,
Just really glad you brought up the UI UX experience and who's actually programming it. Because one of the things that we have to be comfortable with, and this is going to be a very challenging statement, is full disclosure, right? Full disclosure. So I've been licensed in all 50 states. I've sold healthcare in all 50 states. Same thing for life insurance. And people will tell me things that they've not told their closest partner, friend, spouse, whomever, right? Things that they've never even told their attorneys or the people that they're supposed to tell these things to. They've not had that conversation. So that disclosure only comes with a certain degree of trust where a person can know and understand that their information is going to be properly utilized, stored, securely transferred if it needs to go somewhere. And I think therein lies the piece, or one of the many pieces that we've yet to tackle, is how well aware that information can actually be, or excuse me, how well aware the consumer is of whether or not their information is actually going to be used in a legal, moral, and ethical way, as opposed to just using it to, for instance, sell five more pills and advertise to you the next latest, greatest thing. So that's put a pin in that one, but a little food for thought.
I I'm curious. I already think I already know the answer, but what's your thoughts on the patient owning their data and not the company?
It's mine. I should own it. And I could absolutely be on the side of the patient as far as them being able to choose to whom they disclose it. But again, with so many privacy laws, HIPAA being the biggest one we talk about, is we don't have enough infrastructure set up to securely get information from point A to point B without somebody getting upset and some law interfering and interjecting and saying that we can't do that. And again, just a quick 30 seconds on it. I'm really big into utilizing AI in my day-to-day life. Now, like I mentioned, disclosure is a part of that. So I've disclosed to my AI the 9, 10 years of posts and conversations that I've had on various social media platforms. Some platforms that I've been on for 15 years plus, I downloaded the entire file of all of the things that I've said. Now, is everybody comfortable with that level of disclosure? Probably not, right?
Right.
Probably not. But if you can be that comfortable and say, you know what do I have to hide? And especially if you're in a position where you're asking for help when you need help from a certified bona fide professional, it makes a difference. So, like I say, when there's that level of trust there, people will give it all to you. But you've got to establish that first and let them know how their information is going to be used.
Thanks for sharing. Anybody else want to jump in on that comment?
Yeah, I think thank you so much for saying that. Trust and safety. I mean, from what I've seen already between, AI surveillance at work and all these different things, and even some suspicion around even EAPs, like, oh, like, what is my employer knowing about me? Should I trust this? Like,
Mhm.
oh, do I want to engage with that? Then, if we're talking about now AI entering, instead of connecting human to human, people talking with mental health, AI chatbots, whatever, um, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a huge problem. I forget which one it was, but a major consumer um, therapy app that has a lot of AI. I'm not sure if the person got access to it through their employer or themselves. However, in some lawsuit, their private, which they thought, conversations with this AI mental health bot was used in a trial. They were able to subpoena that company and use that against them. So, I'm not sure what the point of my saying this is, but I think you all can get what I'm saying. It's extremely
Trust and
dicey
data
waters
transparency.
if it's
Yep.
not, yeah, like who's behind it.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep. For sure. For sure. Rhonda, you work with a lot of employees up front, and I know that you like have medical history on not only the employee but their whole family, so that you can help them better. I mean, how does this play into what you guys are doing?
Oh, it's all about trust. I have experienced the same thing, Paul. People have the same doctor for 20 years and they come in because they have that relationship. They're working with the same coach. They've worked with them for years. They disclose things they would never tell their provider. And then with as far as AI, having your record and then tapping to download that record to a new provider, the consumer might not want that level of disclosure to the whoever they're meeting with at that point. So their trust is huge in the medical space. And so having that one person that is addressing all of your health questions and taking the time to like sit down and ask questions and see you in a way that's not 20 minutes and then a bill is just so powerful to actually get the consumer to trust somebody to then share the things that are going to be impactful and move the needle on their health in a positive direction.
Yeah. And one thing that I love about like what you guys do, over there at Well Trio is that um, you guys almost provide that buffer layer between HR and the employee, so they can just basically wipe their hands and just say, hey, I had no knowledge that they had cancer or that they had some sort of mental disease, and I'm not liable because I didn't know this when I laid them off, type of thing. I mean, we're hearing more and more of those kind of cases creeping up as well. And so I think that, a business that's trying to do its best it can to provide for its employees is also opening up themselves for a lot of litigation, especially being the fiduciary when it comes to their plans. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
go for
think
it.
that ultimately companies were never really intended to manage employees' health, and yet that's where we find ourselves. And so to create that layer, a buffer between HR and an employee's health is so valuable to the employee, where they know there's a layer that's not going to breach over to HR. So helpful. So helpful.
For sure. For sure. Okay, so we're coming up on the top of the hour. I just want to be mindful of everybody's time, but I definitely wanted to dive into a conversation that Bennett and I had through email. He brought up a good point, and I really kind of wanted to dive into that as our last kind of conversation. So, Bennett, you mentioned a pipeline or a drug pipeline that's ready to explode, or could explode. Do you want to kind of walk us through what you mean by that?
Sure. I mean, you can just go and search. What are the up and coming mental health medications in the pipeline per se. And my fear is that we are trying to define problems and then cure them with more solutions, and that is where R&D and pharmaceutical goes. You just have to look at the history of mental health treatments and the SSRIs that started to come out into play, and then now you're seeing different types of Adderall as an example, right? Extended release or whatnot. So what are we really trying to solve for? And quite frankly, most of the mental health models and these platforms that exist will drive towards diagnosis to drive towards prescription, and that is deemed a success. In my world, and I think most employers would say that's actually not a success. That's not helping somebody work through environmental problem at work, a situational problem, or a traumatic event. And so we've really taken this mental health situation and we've blended it into the healthcare plan, when the reality is there's so much more that can be accomplished outside of the healthcare plan. Because when you're doing an open enrollment meeting and somebody says, hey, is my therapist in Cigna's network? And you go online, you're like, no, I don't see them. And it's because they're not being treated for an underlying medical diagnosis. They haven't been diagnosed with depression yet, or anxiety disorder yet. They're just seeing a therapist for divorce or relationship issues. And so we need to break apart mental health and not just define it as one thing and say, are we providing life coaching over here? We're providing career counseling over here. We're providing life skills assessments over here to help you deal with this, or we're treating an underlying chemical imbalance or a true mental health condition. And so this pipeline, though, I fear is going to be addressing and trying to address all of these. Have a traumatic event, take this. So that's what I mean by the fear of what is coming down with this mental health pipeline of different types of SSRIs, bipolar disorder treatments. It can be very scary.
Makes sense. Does anybody want to add something to that?
Chime in really quickly. You brought up earlier the point of conditioning through commercial after commercial after commercial. I believe his name was Edward Bernays. There's a book out called Propaganda. And the things that we were able to convince people in our country to do based on mass media consumption, right? I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far, but I'll just make a mention to propaganda. It utilizes a technique that was fashioned by a gentleman named, I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Hegel. Hegelian dialectic is the phrase, and it basically sums up as problem, reaction, solution.
Solution.
So if you know what you want the solution to be, i.e., buy my drug, you know what the conditioning is going to cause in terms of a reaction of a person by steadily letting them know that this, and this symptom is going to be something that you want to look out for. All you have to do is politely present the problem or even suggest the problem. And just that mild bit of suggestion of the problem leads to a solution that you've already created as a solution by manufacturing the problem. I'll pause on that one because again, well,
Well, it's a
that
great point.
was kind of loaded, but you get it.
We
Yep.
saw that with two recent lawsuits of telehealth mental health platforms that were advertising as very low cost or no cost programs. One is Cerebral and the other one was, I think, called Done Global. And Cerebral's model was basically, hire a bunch of psychiatric mental health nurse practitioners and give them a 1 hour time with these visits and make the revenue off of prescribing medications. And
Hmm.
to the tune of, trying to find it here, but Cerebral was a $3.6 million settlement, finding that they had the financial incentives tied to prescriptions. And the bigger one was Done Global, which was $100 million scheme for Adderall, which is it's just wild to see this. But here's the problem: mental health. Oh, here's our free app, and roll this out to your employees. They can schedule meetings and visits and beautiful UX UI and data is secure. But the revenue model was how many prescriptions can we write? And that's the fear. And the reality for an employer is to say, what is the actual model of the platform you are rolling out to your people? And is medication the last resort or is it the frontline defense?
First call. Mhm. Absolutely. To that point, if nothing else, and again, another shameless plug, I don't get anything for it, but I usually would work with people that have been validated in some way, shape, or form. And one of the primary partners that I look for solutions through is a validation institute, namely because they investigate those types of things. And that goes into disclosure also. How willing is a company to disclose where the money comes from and how they're getting paid? And if they're
Mhm.
not willing to disclose how the money is actually moving throughout the organization, that in and of itself is the biggest red flag. Again, Bennett, to your point, is medicine the first or the last, right?
Yeah, completely agree with you. And Bennett, to your point, I think we just saw this as a huge example with the GLP-1s, right? That what you were just talking about, all of a sudden it's all over. You look overweight, BMI's too high. Oh, we've got a solution for that, right? And then it became so expensive, employers saying, we can't afford this in our plan. We're not going to cover
Hmm.
Right.
GLP-1s. And what you're beginning to see now is, oh, it's not just about the weight, but it's about the cardiovascular benefits that you get. So now you're getting into the comorbidities that this drug is supposed to help. And again, it's a way to sell the drugs. And Bennett, I agree. I think that's where mental health care is unfortunately going. I think we're going to see the same thing that we've seen with the GLP ones.
Now available in pill form.
Yes.
It's all marketing, right? That's all it is. It's just good marketing. Spin it any which way they can. So, well, cool. Yeah, we're definitely coming up at the top of the hour. If anybody wants to add one last thing, I'll give you guys some time to kind of go around and do your last little thoughts on what you think the uh, where the mental health space is going to go, especially for businesses within the next 3 to 5 years. We'll just say by 2030. So, and then you can just do a little shameless plug for yourself as well. So, we'll start with the ladies again. Maria, if you want to go first, that would be awesome.
Sure. So I think, going back to where I started, I think healthcare, mental health care is not necessarily should be embedded in the plan design. I think it should be cash. I think it provides people access to the right carriers, not ones that are pushing medications and have incentives, different incentives that aren't aligned. So I think that requires a cultural shift. I think that requires employers to think about things differently, think about, in a way, as Paul said, from a fiduciary perspective, and really question where's the money flow? Like, how are you, this free app, how are you making your money? Um, so I do think it's about to explode, and it's the number one claims driver for disabilities, et cetera, that employers really need to pay attention to and think about drastically different way of approaching it.
Makes sense. Let's shoot it over to Dana.
I love where we landed in the big conversation of follow the money. I think that's such a good reminder for everything in our lives, like whatever personal products, tech we use, employer. I love it. So thank you for that reminder. Um, yeah, I think in general, I have noticed myself compared to after, during and after COVID, things actually seemed like there was more care and acknowledgement about what real mental health should be valued as, what it takes to invest in. I think we've kind of deviated that way. The climate right now seems a little bit unfriendly to employees. I'll just say it lightly. However, I think shifts will come. I think burnout and just the general, global instability, AI disruption. I think we're going to reach another precipice of like a similar sort of feeling or energy that COVID had. And I think maybe hopefully in the next like 2 to 3 years, there will be a shift back again of like real cultural changes at work, real solutions, not just throwing out, the meditation app for everyone. So I'm waiting for that shift to come back again, of back to hopefully a more humane environment.
Love it. Love it. Rhonda.
Yeah, thanks, Cody. I also think we landed on a good spot with follow the money. Uh, Paul, you talked about the solution and kind of driving just symptom. One of the things I found, especially with GLP-1, is that the solution is driving the diagnosis. So when GLP-1s, they're way too expensive. Companies can't pay for them anymore. We're only going to cover them if you're type 2 diabetic. All of a sudden, there's an explosion in type 2 diabetic diagnoses. Like that is a significant issue. There are solutions to these very complex problems. I love when we get together a good group of people who are thought creators coming together and then sharing ideas and finding out what we can do to better our own little part of the planet. That's why I love this podcast. So thank you, Cody.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming. Bennett, we'll jump it over to you.
Yeah, I think what's really important for brokers and employers to be thinking about is the realm of benefits that you're offering, the whole portfolio, and for a broker to ask a really strong question about what are you doing for mentoring, what are you doing for coaching, in breaking apart the mental health benefit into a couple other actionable areas that employers can develop a plan and can develop resources and put resources towards there that would have proven to have positive benefits on employees to address burnout specifically. So thank you.
Yeah, love it. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Paul, over to you.
Ooh, the outro, right? Fear is where I see this going, and not necessarily the false evidence appearing real, but free education allowing responsibility. So when this education is actually introduced to the employer, the decision makers, the employees, it's going to allow for another level of responsibility to actually be implemented. And that's again across all fronts. But without that, how can we take that responsibility on if there isn't an education around it, or if there is a paywall, or if there are, and I'll just say it again, just not as nicely, lazy brokers that don't do their job in truly educating the populace. So next 3 to 5 years, there will be a big shakeup with AI. And there's absolutely going to be some people, some groups that are there to help quiet the storm. But I can see a lot more disruption, and not necessarily in the happiest, smiley way prior to it actually being resolved.
Yep, I agree. I agree. Great, good take. Derek, bring us home, my friend.
All right. So coming from the military, it's a high stress, high PTSD, high suicide rate organization, and I see what I see is a lot of companies are getting that way as well, where they say like their biggest phrase is like we're a lean organization, and they don't know what in the name of Homer J. Simpson lean organization actually means, because what they're trying to do is just say we're going to do more with less, which is great, but they forget about the important part about lean, which is making processes that allow that to happen. And so all they're doing is just working people to the bone. So the problem then, the one thing that I did like about how the military addresses that stress is that they own it. They recognize their part in it, and they understand that it's a high stress environment, but they set up systems where people have resiliency training, and they have and they really encourage. We talked earlier about how we don't want to admit it. Like they've really been pushing people to get help, And but they recognize that that's their part. I think when companies start doing that, they start recognizing their part in the stress that their employees are feeling, even though they may have stress from other areas, but recognizing their part, I think, is going to take a big step in their putting up some money to fix the problem.
Yep. Yep. I agree. And I'll just kind of echo what everybody's done. And I think, Derek, you hit it home for me. Accountability is the number one thing because we don't need another app. We don't need another service. We don't need another this or that, right? We need to have behavioral change. And that's what it really boils down to. And that behavioral change is not only on the business side, but it's also on the broker, on the HR, on the carrier, as well as the employee. Everybody needs to make a dynamic shift in their cognitive behavior, right? The way they look at things, the way that they go out and spend mommy and daddy's credit card, and I mean the business's credit card when it comes to their healthcare, right? They don't care. They want convenience over cost savings a lot of times, right? And so that requires a lot of costs, a lot of behavior change. So that's where I'm going to leave it. So I want to thank each and every one of you panelists for joining. We appreciate your guys' take. You guys definitely are disruptors in the space by my book, hands down. You guys are always welcome back anytime we have another discussion. Just feel free to let me know, and we'd be happy to have you guys back on. And for those that are tuning in, we appreciate you guys as well. We couldn't do this without your love and support. So make sure that you, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to these panelists. They would love to answer your questions. I'm answering for them, but they would love to answer your questions. And definitely like and subscribe. And if you want to get engaged in the conversation, we would love to have you. There's always a spot at our table for you to join our discussions. So with that being said, thanks everybody. We appreciate it. Thanks again to our panelists, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Behind the Premium. Have a good one.
Thanks, Cody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Cody.